What's going on, guys? We got another mouse review. We finally hit 200 subs. Amazing, right? Isn't it just amazing how we can finally hit our goal of 200? Absolutely amazing. But anyways, let's get right down into this. Right? First things first, this is not going to be a small mouse. Not a small mouse. Although it's a Kana remake, or inspired by. It is not a small mouse. It is a medium to large size mouse. But, I don't know. It's not overly big or anything, you know? Like, it's a usable size. It's not much bigger than like an XM1 or a Burst Pro or a ZA13, all mice that I have that I will compare later on in the video. But first things first, it's not small. Let's get that out of the way. Second, it comes with a rubber cable. I personally have put the Razer Viper Mini stock cable on there, swapped a couple pins around, and it works just fine. With the weight of the mouse being at 79 grams, the cable swap that I did, it helps a lot, because with it being a heavier mouse nowadays, 79 grams being heavy nowadays, the Viper Mini cable works fine. Like, you're not going to feel the weight of the cable over the weight of the mouse. So it's easy to modify. They're normal Phillips head screws. They're under the feet, of course. So I just put Amazon dots on there. I do have Tiger Arc 2s or something like that for this mouse that I haven't put on yet. But the stock feet actually glide extremely consistent. Like, they're very consistent feet. They're not the fastest feet in the world, of course, but they are very consistent and very stable. Like, they're very steady. Like, you don't have any wobble on the mouse. Like some mice on a SkyPad that's absolutely flat surface with no give. Some brand new feet, you'll have a little bit of a ricketiness, and you got to break them in to level them out and whatnot. When I first got this mouse and had the stock feet on there was no issues. The only reason why I changed the stock feet is because I did install the Viper Mini cable, which is also a 5-pin cable. You just swap a couple around. Anyways, first things first, I mean, it did give me very big Burst Pro vibes, Burst Core vibes, Burst vibes. That's all it gave me, first off. And that's, I think, because the shape has such wide hips, and they're very, I don't want to say aggressive, but they're very pronounced, I guess you could say. And the front of the mouse is somewhat straight. It's more curved than a Burst Pro is, or Burst Core, Burst shape. But it is somewhat very flat and straightforward sides towards the front. Towards the front of the mouse. So it did straight off the rip, give me very heavy Burst Pro vibes. But it's nowhere near the Burst Pro, because the Burst Pro spins out on Artisan Raidens. This mouse does not, because I don't know what's True Track, True something. It's like a 3370 sensor or some shit like that. And it works absolutely just fine. You can't adjust the lift-off distance you can't adjust the lift-off distance, unfortunately, in the software. I was thinking of the XM1 beta software that I had just downloaded. But the lift-off distance and everything so far on all the pads that I've tested, which are the Lingyang, the Raiden, and the SkyPad, which are 3 very different mouse pads, one being glass, the other being a Raiden, which is common, not common, but somewhat common with spinouts, with some mice being the Burst Pro one of them. So this is a great alternative to the Burst Pro if I haven't gotten that straight yet. but no issues across the 3 mouse pads I've used it on so far with the sensor. The liftoff distance is non-adjustable, but like Zowie says, it's perfect where it's at. And SteelSeries really did do a good job on the sensor. So on to the next ones. Quick click wobble. God, I can't even talk and drink a beer before this, but there's absolutely none. You don't have to worry about that because it's a solid top shell and it's not separated buttons. So the tensioning on the switches also feels very, very good. They're Omrons and they feel absolutely great. They almost feel similar to 8.0s in the XM1. Obviously, all switches are going to be different in all mice because the tensioning in all mice are different beyond different switches. But it is comparable with the feedback and the tactility that you get out of it is very comparable to an XM1R that I have. Where is it? Somewhere around here. One of these with the 8.0s in it. So you do get a lot of tactility and you know when you're pressing it. And I haven't had any excuse me, misclicks with the mouse yet. And they're very I like the clicks on them. They're great for Omrons and the tensioning on it is absolutely great. And that leads us into the build quality of the mouse. Absolutely stellar. When I put the cable in this thing, it was one of the easiest cable installs I've ever done. It's the 4 screws, you pop the top off and there it is. Everything's right there. The top shell is like 2-piece, so you got the black matte piece obviously and then the gloss top part, and they don't come apart when you're taking apart to put a new cable in or whatever. And I don't know, the build quality of the mouse is absolutely outstanding, on the same level as Zowie, or some would say Razer sometimes. But yeah, it's absolutely great build quality of the mouse. There's no rattle, and I can't say that. There's a tiny bit in the scroll wheel, but you gotta be going absolutely fucking crazy with the thing. I can't hear any rattle, and maybe a tiny bit, but it's built phenomenally. It's a great built mouse. Like, it's very solid. Like, you're not gonna have any flex anywhere on this mouse. Like, you can squeeze the living fuck out of it. Let's just put it that way, all right? Scroll wheel, average. It's just an average scroll wheel. It works perfectly fine. I haven't had any issues with it. It obviously lights up. My camera's not very good, so it just fucking blows out everything. But scroll wheel, absolutely fine. I haven't had any issues with it. It registers all the steps, and the click on it is it's fine. Medium. It's not hard. It's not super soft. It's honestly just a perfect scroll wheel. It's nothing to complain about whatsoever. On to the next thing. Software, fine. I've already pretty much covered. I'm looking at a bulletin list I got over here on the tablet, so don't mind me. Already went over 79 grams. Very solid build. Easy to mod. The dimensions are 123 by 69 by 41.5 millimeters. So it is fairly tall compared to other mice. Most other mice nowadays are coming in at around, a very, very low mice would be around 35 millimeters, and a very tall mice would be coming out around 39. So this is actually a very, very tall mouse, but the hump is much more towards the center, so you get a lot more of, I use like a loose claw. I don't know if that's a real grip or anything, but I get a lot more adjustability out of this rather than something that has a much more flat back end. Like, this has a much more of an FK style hump to it, to where it's much more gradual and towards the center of the mouse, to where you can get some of that scrunch and stuff it kind of in between the mouse pad and your palm there when you're doing some recoil control, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, so it's not as steep as of a hump as you would think it would be, as tall as the mouse is, but it is there, and you do get the control while playing claw. And it's not overly like, oh my god, it's an MM710 hump. No, it's nothing like that. It's much more of an FK style hump for as tall as the mouse is. Coating. I haven't had any issues with the matte coating or the gloss coating on the top. I don't really feel a need to put grips on this mouse. I do put grips on most of my mice, and this one I just really don't see the need. I haven't used this mouse an extensive amount, sorry, but so far while using the mouse, I haven't had any issues with sweat or anything like that. The coating on the mouse is absolutely fine, gloss or matte on the sides. The side buttons, they're pretty large. They have they take a bit to activate, not a whole lot. I'd say they're middle of the road side buttons. Very good placement, very good size, and I don't have any issues with the side buttons whatsoever. Pre and post travel is very minimal on this mouse. Where can I click? I don't know if you could see, but obviously the mouse is moving a little bit in my left hand, but I have no complaints over the travel of the switches. Like I said, it's built like a fucking tank, and absolutely superb. Like, I have no complaints over the build quality of this mouse whatsoever. Like, there is none. Like, after using all these new age small brand mice, like, this thing is an absolute joy to use just because it's put together so well. Like, that's one thing I cannot stress enough about this mouse is, wow. Like, please, like, that's why I usually main a Viper Mini, is because there's no holes in it. It's very solid. Like, you are not going to have issues with the mouse. Like, it is put together absolutely perfectly. Obviously, it's a little heavy. It comes with a rubber cable, but those are really the two, like, downsides of the mouse. And that it's Asia exclusive, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if it's European exclusive, but I know that it was made for the Asian market. So there's not very many retailers for this mouse. I got mine off X-ray pads and it took forever. They sent it to the wrong address and everything. It was a big ordeal, but I have it now, so it's all that matters. But that's one of the downsides of this mouse, and the other two just being the weight and the stock cable it comes with, and then maybe the dyed feet, since they're not the fastest. But like I said, they are stable and they are very consistent and great shaped feet that they come with. So yeah, I mean, I guess we could line up a couple mice with it, see kind of a size comparison, kind of where we're at with this thing. Show you it's not like a giant mouse, but it's definitely not a small mouse by any means. And yeah, so if you use a Burst Pro on like a Raiden and you're having issues there, or you have an XM1 and maybe the sides are a bit too aggressive for you like they are for me, I'd maybe give this a shot. I'd highly recommend it as a claw mouse. And if you're not like the biggest weight weenie or whatever you would want to call it, you're not like very picky about the weight of a mouse, or you have your ways of bringing the weight down of a mouse, then I'd highly suggest this mouse. Like, I highly suggest it. I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10, only because of the cable, the non-virgin PTFE feet, and the weight of the mouse. But besides that, it's a stellar mouse. I'd absolutely recommend to at least try it. And yeah, hope you all have a nice day, and peace.